Hey folks, Colin Richards here, and welcome back to this segment of the Lord and Richard Show. Many of you know that I really like to follow Warren Buffett. I'm not alone in that, but I'm a big fan. I've read so much about him and just devoured everything that I can, because here's a man who's one of the greatest investors of all time, much less our time. And here's a man that, living into his 90s, the secret of his longevity was not his diet. He enjoyed cheeseburgers and Coke and all the things that you should eliminate if you want to live a long life. But yet, he is worth over $80 billion today, probably more at the time of this recording. But did you know that 94% of his wealth was accumulated after he turned 60? That's interesting. That's real interesting. So it tells you the value of time, discipline, consistency, not doing the kinds of things that Jesse Livermore was doing, but doing the kinds of things that Ronald Read was doing. Here, both men, Ronald Read and Warren Buffett, living into their 90s, living long lives, amassing for their situation large fortunes. And yet, had Warren Buffett taken the attitude, you know what, I've had a great career. I'm 60 years old now. I'm going to put my feet up and enjoy it. Nobody would have criticized him as a millionaire. But little would we have ever known about him. He would have been unremarkable had he not continued to stay by the stuff and continue to do what he knew to do year after year, day after day, hour after hour, minute after minute. Someone has wisely said that small things consistently executed can result in big results, right? A lot of times we think it's going to be the next big thing. And let me give you a little wisdom here. As I sit in front of hundreds and hundreds of people over and over again, there are people that I can just tell by the way they're talking, this person is setting themselves up for a potential dramatic failure. At Lord and Richards, one of the things that we do is we come alongside of you through wisdom and instruction and experience and knowledge, and we help you make great financial decisions. And one of those is the decision to sit down in the first place, because many people on autopilot are missing out on the information they need to retire. Wouldn't it be terrible to find out after retiring that you weren't truly prepared? Wouldn't it be terrible during your retirement to experience a massive loss that required you to go back to work whether you wanted to or not? Wouldn't it be better to sit down and have a conversation around the wisdom of the right kind of investing and the right kind of results that will put you in the right place to retire without worry, and then to be able to do amazing things with the resources that God has put at your disposal? That's the goal, right? Channels only, not ponds accumulating scum on the surface because of inactivity, but being a conduit of God's blessing to the world through the abundance that He trusts you. Knowing that wisdom is required to not only accumulate, but to keep wealth. And also the wise man is going to be a distributor, a channel of wealth to be a blessing to others as a steward of God's resources. Knowing that, what does this whole retirement thing and the accumulation of wealth, how does this work? How do I make that happen? A lot of people are getting ready to retire, and you may feel woefully unprepared or you may feel overprepared. Regardless, what we do at Lord and Richards is we sit down with you and we discuss your goals, your dreams, your values. You share with us your heart. We ask husbands and wives, if we're talking to married folks, to come together, because we talk about so much more than money. We talk about what things really matter in life to you. What are your values? And then what we're going to do is we're going to do some research. We're going to take the statements and the information that we gather from you, a simple budget, and we're going to test your retirement probability of success. We're going to test your downside risk. And we're going to do all this in comparison to your goals. As a result of that meeting, as a result of coming together around this information, when we get back together, you're going to have a high degree of understanding and confidence whether or not you're ready to retire or whether or not you're in good shape if you've already retired. And then from there, you can make great decisions based on great information. Careful study done by our CFPs, done by myself and other advisors on our team. Well, we call this a summit that we're climbing. Think of it as a mountain climb. All these years you've been working. You've been climbing the mountain. You've finally gotten to the top, right? What is easier for a mountain climber? You may or may not know the answer to this question. Getting up to the summit or coming down. A lot of times I think of it in terms of, man, it's just a downhill slide, right? But man, that is so difficult. right? It puts impact on your joints. There's potential for falls. Many people will tell you that in climbing, the downhill is more dangerous even than the uphill side of it, although the uphill gets the glory, right? The movie tends to end as soon as they summit Mount Everest. But somebody has wisely said the person who was on top of Mount Everest didn't land there, right? They had to go through a rigorous climb. But now it's time to come down. It's time for you to distribute that money. It's time for you to make sure that you have enough to live on for the rest of your life. What are the questions we should be asking? Well, number one, I think you should be asking, how long should I expect to live? Unfortunately, many people kind of shortchange themselves on this. Let me tell you that here in America, with the abundance of medical care and technology, we're living longer and longer lifespans. The real risk of life isn't living too short, it's living too long, because then we have to take those assets and stretch them out like taffy at the carnival to make them last over your lifetime. It can be very difficult. This is why I say that advisors who focus on accumulation and building a portfolio, but who are not specialists in distribution and never running out of that portfolio, are really playing a different game. They're valuable, they're important. But when it's time to retire, it's a different question, folks. It's calculus versus addition and subtraction. So for our purposes, most of the time, we stretch your lifespan out. And when we run our tests, we actually will, if you're a married couple, extend the wife's out quite long, till maybe age 95, having the husband pass earlier. You say, why would you do that? Well, because a lot of times we're losing part of our income in the form of one of our Social Security checks dropping off, right? So when you pass away, your spouse, if your check is larger, can step up to that check, but they still lose that smaller check. And so think longer, not shorter, when you're doing your personal mental calculations, and plan for a long life. That's the greater challenge in retirement. Well, how much, question number two, if I am going to plan for a long life, how much should I expect cost of living to increase during my retirement? Well, we have the history in our offices and in our software at Lord & Richards. We know what this looks like. And inflation is a bear. It can eat your lunch. But the good news is we have history, we have a lot of knowledge, wisdom, and experience in this area. And we can simulate different levels of inflation so that you can have a high level of understanding and security as a result of a complimentary visit with us. And by the way, at Lord & Richards, all of our visits are complimentary. Our clients certainly who work with us compensate us for the assets that we manage for them, just like every other advisor. But here's the thing that's different at Lord & Richards. At Lord & Richards, we develop a full, comprehensive plan, including a risk management plan, an income plan, a healthcare plan, an estate plan, a tax plan. All this is inclusive for the same charge that you're already paying your accumulation-focused advisor. So build that into your planning. Inevitable increase in costs. Big question number three, when should I retire? Met with some folks this week, and we generally give good news, but sometimes we just have to tell you folks, hey, you're not going to be able to retire at the age that you gave us. But isn't that powerful information? Wouldn't you rather know that before you take the leap into uncertainty and find out, oh, wow, maybe some of my assumptions were a little off and maybe I should work an extra year, or maybe we can do some things with the budget. So it's critical that you have a conversation with an expert, with a specialist around income to know whether you are fully safe. Don't just use these basic Monte Carlo scenarios. You've got to map it out. You got to develop a cash flow and see if it works, just like a business. And question number four, okay, now that I have a good idea on how long I should plan to live, on the kinds of costs and my expenses I need to account for, and the age that is reasonable for me to retire and have a higher likelihood of success, where do I need to invest? Where should I place my assets? Oh, that's a very important question. You see, because most Americans are taking too much risk on their assets based on their goals. If your goal was merely the accumulation of wealth and you had no need to access the money, that's an entirely different goal, and you have greater freedom, both emotionally and mathematically, to take far more risk. Right? If you don't need to live on the money. But folks, if you're living on the money, We've stepped into a whole new dimension, and you need to use different tools and strategies to manage the risk in your investments. And no, I'm not talking about a diversified portfolio. That goes without saying. I'm talking about going beyond diversification. You say, well, I'm working with a fiduciary. I'm talking about going on working with a fiduciary. You say, I'm working with a planner. I'm talking about going beyond working with a planner. I'm talking about working with somebody who specializes in making sure all these years that we've worked with our clients that not one of our clients will ever run out of money before they run out of life because of their investments. Now, you might choose to spend it all. That sounds like fun, but it's a little short-sighted, right? But folks, we want to get you there. We want to get you safely to your retirement and right on through it. And we do that based on biblical principles. I can't wait to talk to you and conduct a financial analysis that will give you peace of mind. It just starts with a phone call.